Glory to Jesus Christ. Welcome back. You are listening to The Voice of Reason. And on today's episode, we have a very special and privileged treat for all of you because I am here at Boys Town, Nebraska at the Father Flanagan Museum. And I'm here with none other than Thomas Lynch, who is the resident historian of all things Father Flanagan. Tom, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you for joining me today at the Hall of History.
Thank you for being here, for allowing us to come here. I'm so excited to be here because last night we all got to watch the premiere of the brand new film, Heart of the Servant, the Father Flanagan story. And it was so moving, it was so touching, it was so empowering in a sense. I watched this film and all I could think of was, everyone needs to know who Father Flanagan is. Everyone needs to know. So that's why we're here, because I want my audience to know who this great man is, Father Flanagan. And there is nobody better in the world to explain who Father Flanagan was and why he's still so important today than you. So, Tom, please tell us, who is Father Flanagan and why does everyone need to know who he is?
Father Flanagan was a revolutionary. He was born in Ireland in 1886. He came to America at age 18, and he always wanted to become a Catholic priest. He struggled to become a priest due to poor health. Eventually, he was ordained in Innsbruck, Austria, came back to Omaha, Nebraska, his new adopted home, and founded a community called Boys Town. And it was a very revolutionary community. It's still a revolutionary community today. It welcomed children of all races and all religions to come live together in a loving family environment based on faith.
Wow. So what exactly is Boys Town? For anybody that doesn't know, could you, because right now we're in the middle of a humongous, enormous 640-acre campus. And by the way, if you guys have never come to Boys Town, Nebraska, you need to come. You need to come and you need to visit this campus and see how beautiful it is, how enormous it is, and you need to see everything because this right here is truly, this is a historical landmark, correct?
It is. You're actually in the village of Boys Town. The village of Boys Town was founded by Father Flanagan. He purchased the property in 1921, and then he created the village in 1934. We have our own zip code, and our only industry in this village is to help families and children to get better. It's the only village of its type actually in the world that operates that way, just for kids and families. And it's over 600 acres. We have our own school system here. We have our own fire and police department. We have our own mayor. Our mayor is one of our students. Right now his name is Ethan, because Father Flanagan wanted the children to learn about democracy, equality. So the children vote every year to have a mayor for the village of Boys Town. And we have over 300 boys and girls physically living with us in the village of Boys Town today. And they've come here to begin new lives. They've had troubles in their lives, so they're coming here to start over. But it's just the tip of the iceberg of all of our programs, because we have national programs across America, and we serve over 2 million families and children every year through our Boys Town programs.
That's incredible, and we want to learn everything about that. We want to learn more. Would you be able to walk us through this amazing museum so that we can all learn everything that we need to know about Father Flanagan?
Definitely. You're standing right now in our Hall of History Museum. This was created in 1986 in honor of Father Flanagan for his 100th anniversary of his birth, and it's filled with documents and photographs all detailing the history of our community and village and what Father Flanagan did to change the lives of children around the world.
Excellent. Well, please lead the way, walk us through, and let's all learn about Father Flanagan.
Thank you. We can actually start right here. We have these mannequins. This represents Father Flanagan welcoming a boy to Boys Town from the 1930s. All the boy mannequins you would see in our Hall of History were actually boys that were here 30 years ago. They made life masks, their faces with their hands. And then Father Flanagan's nephew, Larry, posed for his mannequin. So his nephew actually got to pose for his uncle to represent Father Flanagan. And behind it are headlines of Father Flanagan's work. He was very much a revolutionary, as I mentioned. He had a new way of treating children, saying they shouldn't be locked up in institutions and abused. They needed to come and living and family-style living. Everyone laughed at Father Flanagan when he proposed that back in 1920, 1930s, but eventually President Franklin Roosevelt said America needed 49 more Father Flanagans, one for every state and territory. Wow. And children would be sent to him. We have a little headline, "Lad dumped at Boys Town." Children would just be sent here with little signs around their necks in the 1920s and 30s saying, "This boy's on his way to Boys Town, will you help him?" And then eventually they'd end up in the city of Omaha and Father go and pick him up. Because back at that time in America, there really was no child care programming. Today we have social service programs, Social Security, to help families that need help. But when Father Flanagan had founded Boys Town in 1917, there were no programs really for children. There were orphanages, and some were good, some were not too good. Reformatories, terrible places for children, and then homelessness. And on any given day, you would see homeless children, and they'd be boys, usually roaming the streets across America. As young as 8, 9 years old, they'd be abandoned on the streets. So Father Flanagan said, I want to help those children, because he said our children is our future, and the way we treat our children is going to determine how our society moves forward. So he was having all new ideas and revolutionary concepts how we could help children back in 1917 all the way through the 1930s.
And it's true to say that Father Flanagan is really the first famous American Catholic priest. Would it be correct to say that?
It would be very true, very true. Wow. Father Flanagan reached out and used media, and we can actually see that as we go through the museum. He had a unique radio program, and then the movie Boys Town was created. He actively went out into the society and said, I have a new way, I want to help children, and who wants to come help me with that project? Some people were against him, many people against him, but many more came to support him, like President Franklin Roosevelt, and saw the good work he was doing and how he could help the children of America, and eventually the children of the world too.
It seems like Father Flanagan was a forerunner to even Archbishop Fulton Sheen. So he was doing all of this back then, right after World War I, through the Great Depression, into World War II. He did all of this, he built all of this. It was remarkable that he did it during such difficult times.
He did, and he had no money. Because when he founded Boys Town, he created this as an independent home. In fact, we can walk over here and I can actually show you an image of our first home, because when Father Flanagan was working with homeless men in downtown Omaha back in 1916 in that era here in the city, and he realized he wasn't succeeding with these homeless men, so he did a case study of 2,000 of these men, saying, why are you living this way? And they all had the same story. When they were younger, their families broke up, nobody wanted them, and they drifted. And at these shelters he had in Omaha, homeless boys started to come in. So he said, I need to start working with homeless boys. So what he did was he borrowed $90 from a good friend named Mr. Henry Monsky, who was a Jewish attorney in the city, and he opened our first home, and this is a picture of it. On December 12th, 1917, he moved into this building, and he made a radical statement. He said, I'm going to welcome any boy, regardless of race or religion, to live with me, and he said, I'm going to be independent. So he never took any funding from any religious group or community program, because he said they're going to put parameters how I can operate. And this first home was overwhelmed. He had about 70 boys here in the span just a few days. So we moved to our second home. And this building is still standing here in Omaha, and he moved into this building, and it was a larger facility, and he expanded our population, had more boys come live with them. The only problem was his rented property, and then when he was ready, about 1920, the people who owned the building said, you have to move on. Well, he went throughout the city of Omaha, nobody wanted him, because he had all these different boys of races and religions living together. So eventually he went out to the country and bought land and created the village of Boys Town where we're standing right now.
Wow.
As we come by, you see one of our displays here. We got this little boy, we call him the boy in the box. This is a true little boy that Father Flanagan found on one of his travels across America. He was about 9 years old, living in a piano crate in a railroad yard. Nobody wanted him. And on the wall, we actually have the photograph Father Flanagan had taken before he came to live at Boys Town. He went to the local police and said, here's this little boy living in this piano crate. Does anybody want him? And they said, no, if nobody wants him, if you want him, you can just go ahead and take him. And that was the atmosphere in America at the time. There really was no one protecting these homeless children. So he was an advocate saying, I want to protect these children and give them a new life. And so that's what he did, was he traveled across America with his ideas and concepts.
Nobody wants him. That's what they told him.
Yes.
A 9-year-old boy, nobody wants him.
Definitely, yeah, and he found that often when you go to communities. People would walk up to him and say, do you want this boy? Nobody wants this boy. He's orphan, or his family has abandoned him. Do you want to take him? And then he would bring those children to live here at Boys Town. Those were the lucky boys that got to come live with him, because many children back at the time, you can imagine what happened to them. They just drifted and disappeared in America. And in 1921, he moved out to the property we're standing on right now, and we actually have an image of the boys coming out here. He could only afford one truck. So these are the little boys coming out onto to our property. We were 10 miles from the city at the time, way in the cornfield. And these children were amazed as they came further west. And we have some of our fundraising campaigns Father Flanagan had, because he was a great marketer. But he'd put pictures of the boys who lived here in his campaigns. And people write in hate letters saying, I don't like it because of that boy's race or that religion, that you have them living at Boys Town. And he'd write back and say, you're not a very good American if you have that concept. And again, this is the 1920s, 1930s. And you can see he said, have a heart campaign. Because at Boys Town today, we have our love campaign. Because he always talked about love for these homeless children and how to defeat hate, you have to have love. So that's what he advocated for the children here at Boys Town. And we still operate that way today when our children come to us. And this farm was a very unique opportunity for him to expand.
So it's very true to say that the movie that we watched yesterday, that beautiful film, they talk about how Father Flanagan ending up here was really out of necessity because he was fighting against the segregation and the Jim Crow laws. And it was illegal. It was actually illegal for him to bring these boys together because of their different races, their different ethnicities. So he founded his own town so that he wouldn't have to worry about those laws. That's remarkable.
It was.
That's remarkable. Who does that?
We believe he created one of the first intentionally racially integrated communities in America, because the boys, when they came here, went to school together, they lived together, ate together, all in the same buildings, and it was a very unique. As you wander through our museum, you can see photographs, and many people are amazed to see the diversity in the images, and that's because of the children. He took anyone who came to the door that needed assistance, and some people liked it, and many people were against it. He had run-ins with the Ku Klux Klan that objected to his ideas and concepts, but he just ignored them and continued on, because he said, it's my responsibility as a Christian and as a Catholic to take care of all children. I can't just turn a child away because of their race or religion. And many of the boys who came to him, some had been in trouble. They had maybe been in trouble with the law. Some were called degenerates. They were just called horrible names. And he said, that's just a child that needs help. I want to help that child. So that's what he did. He took in the children nobody wanted in the world, and that's what Boys Town still stands for today. And
this was more than 40 years before the civil rights movement here in America. He was doing this more than 40 years, between 40 and 50 years before, already he was doing this.
Yes.
That's remarkable.
And it was based on his Catholic teaching and his Catholic morals and concepts. That's what he used when he worked with the children here at Boys Town and his ideas.
It's what I always say, my friends, the Catholic Church built the West, and Western morality, at least traditional Western morality, comes from the teachings of the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church is the forerunner for everything that we have in this country that is good, beautiful, and true.
Definitely. And we have a little display as you come through our museum. We have our original windmill, and we talk about our farm operation that Father Flanagan had, the tough times he had during the Great Depression, the buildings he built here for the boys. He wanted good, substantial buildings built here, so they are created. And the reason why he wanted to expand the village, this is actually a map showing his concept, was during especially the Great Depression, he wrote every day 5 to 10 boys would come to the door and ask to live here, and he'd have to send them away because he didn't have the money, food to take care of them, and it broke his heart. So that's why he wanted to create a village for 1,000 boys. So when people come to visit our village, they're amazed by all the large buildings and homes for the children. That goes to Father Flanagan's aspect and concept. He did not want to turn children away, and that's what we still do at Boys Town today. We have a whole spectrum of programs today, so we can help boys and girls when they come to us and need help.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but it was actually the boys themselves that actually helped in the construction of some of the buildings, correct?
It was. That was part of their work that they did. We have some images of the boys helping to construct the buildings here on campus.
That's
it was
beautiful.
all part of the idea of teaching them skills. So Father Flanagan knew when they left us, they would have to take care of themselves in the world. So that was really important to him.
And it was genius, really, on his part to have the boys actually participate in the construction, because anybody would value something more if they had a hand in building it. So he was a genius in instilling in them those values of, you build it, and because you built it and it's yours, you're going to take care of it, you're going to cherish it, you're going to respect it, and you're going to give it the care that it deserves and it needs. And it's just genius.
That was, again, part of his concept. When the boys came here, this was their village, because they eventually would elect their mayor and run the village of Boys Town. So it was a village just for children, and that's why it was so unique in the world.
And it's true that the mayor here of Boys Town is 18 years old, right? We saw him yesterday, we met him yesterday. An 18-year-old who is the mayor of a town here in the United States. That's really cool.
Yes,
really cool.
Definitely. His name is Ethan. Yeah, we're very lucky we have him to be our mayor. Father Flanagan was a great marketer, and he actually had Boys Town featured in a comic book, Captain Marvel. So we've been part of the Marvel comic book universe since the 1930s. And then he loved boxing, so we have a whole panel here about Joe Palooka, the boxer, bringing a boy here. And there's a special panel where Father says all kids are welcome here at Boys Town, regardless race, religion. So he was very actively trying to get the word out to people across America. And this is a very unique image. This is a picture of from 1937, and it's our junior high boys getting ready to graduate, and they're all dressed in what we call our church clothes. And still today in our village of Boys Town, we teach our boys and girls how to dress appropriately when they go to church and when there's a special event. But all of these boys in this photograph have basically been abandoned by their families, orphaned, or turned out by society. Nobody wanted them. And now they had come to Father Flanagan. They were going to graduate, at least get a junior high education, and go out in the world. And you can see from the image the diversity of the young men that came here to live. These two boys right here in front are two brothers that had come together, because Father Flanagan would try his best to keep families together. We have a great story of a Native American father from Oklahoma. He had 3 boys, and no one would take in his 3 boys and keep them together, partly because they were Native American. So you heard about Father Flanagan drove all the way here back in the 1930s, and Father Flanagan took in those 3 boys so they could live together as a family unit, because many homes did not want to work with them because they were Native American.
Around what year would this picture have been taken?
This is 1937. So that's the boys in 1937, all getting ready to graduate from junior high.
He was ahead of his time. Father Flanagan was in comic books, guys. Boys Town was in comic books. Boys Town and Father Flanagan are part of the Marvel universe. Isn't that crazy? they should include him in the next Marvel movie, right? They should put him in, because he's our real-life superhero.
I think so. That'd be great. We have some images how the boys lived here. They ate in the dining hall, and this is one of the dormitories the boys slept in. You can see all these quilts on these beds. That was made by a group of ladies called the Mothers Guild, founded by his mother, Honoran Flanagan. And this group still exists here in the village of Boys Town, and they still make quilts for the boys and girls on special occasions. 2 of our boys just celebrated their bar mitzvahs, so they made special quilts so they could celebrate their bar mitzvahs. Wow. And faith has always been important to Father Flanagan. He said every boy must learn how to pray. How he prays is up to him. So even today in our village of Boys Town, when the children come here, they follow whatever faith they want to follow. And today in our village, we have Catholic children, Protestant children. We have children following Native American beliefs. We have Muslim children here. Wow. Just every spectrum of children here. And that goes back to Father Flanagan. He wanted the children to have a spiritual life, and we discovered the majority of them do develop a spiritual life and carry it on at Boys Town. They started the election of mayors. We're kind of talking about that, and that's the concept of Father teaching kids democracy. The only adult ever allowed to vote was Father Flanagan. Otherwise, it's just strictly for the children to vote. The boys allowed him to vote in the elections. And this was taken to Germany after World War II to teach children about democracy. So 750,000 children in Germany were following Father Flanagan's concepts of democracy, equality. And just at the premiere last night, one of the producers was saying she visited a little children's home in Germany today, just in the last few years, and this community was created by Father Flanagan back in 1948 after the war, and it's still operating, serving children in Germany today. Incredible. So his work is just international.
So he didn't do this just here in America. He didn't just do this here in Nebraska. He did it in Germany. I understand that he did it in Japan as well. That was also part of the movie. He went all the way to Japan to help establish homes like these. He was, what a great American, what a great human being, what a saint.
People began to hear about Father Flanagan's ideas and concepts, and he actually had a priest come from Chile named Father Hurtado in the 1940s. He came to visit Boys Town, walked on the grounds here, visited Father Flanagan, toured the buildings, the building we're standing in right now. He walked through when it was a dining hall for the boys and studied Father's concept. He went back to Chile and created his programs, and he's now Saint Hurtado. So Father Flanagan actually inspired a saint. So on the grounds here of our village, potentially, God willing, we'll have Father Flanagan, but we've already had Saint Hurtado, and Saint Teresa of Calcutta has already been in our village too and walked on our grounds. Wow. So we'll be a place in America where 3 saints have actually walked on the grounds.
Oh my goodness.
And Father Flanagan always said this is a spiritual place. He said miracles would happen here at Boys Town every day. So it's going right along with his concepts and ideas. We have our circus wagon here. This is a very unique artifact in our museum. This represents one of the traveling wagons that Father Flanagan had back in 1921. You can see a picture of the boys. The local band leader taught him how to sing and dance, put on a show. He loved music, so that was very important to him. They were traveling across the state of Nebraska in these horse-drawn wagons till they hit a town where the Ku Klux Klan was active. And they wouldn't allow the troop perform because Father Flanagan was Catholic, and the boys were all the different races and religions. So eventually he stopped using the wagons, got his own railroad car, and they would use that to travel across America because they could live in the railroad car when they go to a town that objected to him and the boys staying in a hotel because they were different races or eating in a restaurant. Wow. So it was all part of his way of trying to get out and spread the word about Boys Town. And we were talking about his radio program earlier. He had his own radio program back in the 1920s called Links of Love. and we have a map of the United States where it's broadcast. In this national program, he would talk about his ideas and concepts of child care, especially advocating child labor laws, because he would describe stories of the boys coming to him, and they had been exploited in factories and mines and farms, so he wanted to protect those children. So that's why he was advocating in the courts to have that created in legislatures. We have recordings of him on these radio programs, and then the boys would actually come on and sing, and the choir would tell stories. It was just amazing to hear this program. Some of the children had been homeless a few days before, and then they were live on the radio talking to people across America. And the event that really put on the map was the movie Boys Town. And that was filmed right here on location back in 1938, and it was a smash hit when it came out. And Louis B. Mayer wanted Father Flanagan to move to Beverly Hills. He said, "I'll give you $1 million if you'll move to Beverly Hills, and I'll build you a village there, and you'll become the official charity for Hollywood." And Father Flanagan said, "Boys Town and Beverly Hills is not a good mix. I want to stay in my adopted Nebraska." So Mr. Mayer gave money to build a dormitory, because even today we do not own the rights to the movie Boys Town. They're owned by Amazon. Wow. And in the display, we have a special artifact. It's the Oscar Spencer Tracy won for portraying Father Flanagan. And it's very worn, because people over the years have picked it up and rubbed it for good luck. In fact, Mr. Jonathan Rumi held it just yesterday when he was here for the premiere, and he actually did rub it on the chest there too. Right, you can see on the breastplate there. And so it's kind of like a good luck charm. And Mr. Tracy, the day he received it, he said, "I want to give this to Father Flanagan." So it arrived just 2 days later, and he added a plaque dedicating it to Father. This movie was shown all over the world and inspired people to open Boys Towns, because in our archives we have letters from people from Brazil who said they wanted to open their Boys Town, and they did. And other people saw the movie who became religious, men and women, and founded children's homes. So it's a major impact that across the United States with such a unique movie. And then they did a sequel, Men of Boys Town. And so it's usually going to be on Turner Classic Movie around Christmas time. If someone has a chance to watch it, they can actually see the scenes that they filmed here on location.
What year did it come out again?
It came out in 1938.
1938.
And then it was a smash hit. Louis B. Mayer wouldn't release it first, because he says there's no sex in the movie, so no one's going to go see it. So Spencer Tracy
Wait a second. In 1938, that was already they needed to put sex in the movie for movies to sell in 1938?
That's what Louis B. Mayer said. He said, "I won't release it." So Spencer Tracy and Mickey Rooney went to him and said, "This will be a blockbuster movie." So finally he agreed, and it was released. It was a worldwide hit.
You just blew my mind. I can't believe that in 1938, that was already the mindset that you need sex. You need to put sex in a movie to make it sell.
Yes.
That's incredible. But look, there's the Oscar. That's a real, actual Oscar from the 30s, from the late 30s. That's incredible. That's amazing.
He was the first actor to win consecutive Best Actor awards. So this is a very historic Oscar, and that's why we're very lucky we have it on display here. Over the years, people have wanted us to buy it from us and donate it to the new Academy Museum in Hollywood, but it's going to stay right here at Boys Town, because it was a gift to Father Flanagan.
Yes.
Over the years, too, people say we should get it replated, but we don't want to do that, because we want to leave it look like it did, because that was so important to Father Flanagan.
That's amazing.
Yes.
So Father Flanagan was that famous that they made an entire movie of him back in 1938. That's incredible.
Definitely. And then again, it inspired youth care programming to change all across the United States, around the world. He did change the way children were treated in the youth care programs. Today, many of the programs we take for granted in America dealing with youth were created right here in the village of Boys Town by Father Flanagan. That's why his cause to possibly be a saint in the Catholic Church is so important, because he represents someone who went out of their way, dedicated his life to change the way children or needed help, especially the abandoned and abused children nobody wanted. So that's why he created Boys Town. And it was, again, a national and international movement, too, that he created that still goes on today here at Boys Town and around the world.
It's legendary.
In the Hall of History Museum, we have a special area dedicated to Father Flanagan. It's his life. And he was born in a little tiny village called Ballymoe in Ireland. Even today, there's just about 70 people who live there. In that village, he learned faith from his mom and dad. He would work the fields with his father and then pray the rosary in the fields with his dad. His mom had a very special devotion to the Immaculate Conception, the Virgin Mary. So in the village of Boys Town today, our Catholic Church is the Immaculate Conception. And so he grew up in a very strong, bonded Irish Catholic family. Eventually, though, there was no opportunity in Ireland because it was a colony of Britain, and he had grown up seeing a true 1% people owning everything, because in his family, all they owned was their clothing. Otherwise, their landlord owned everything else. They owned the little cottage they lived in. Any animals on the property were owned by the landlord. So there really was no opportunity. So his older sister, Miss Nellie Flanagan, immigrated to America, and then she wrote back to her two brothers saying, come join me. So we have a unique picture here in the Hall of History. It's Father Flanagan is right there in the middle with his cap on. And next to him is his older brother, Patrick Flanagan, and that's Father Flanagan and his brother arriving at Ellis Island in 1904. He was 18 years old when he emigrated to America to begin a new life here. And eventually he came to Omaha because his brother was called to Omaha to open a Catholic parish. So that's how the Flanagan family ended up in Omaha. And eventually we have a picture of his entire family, his mom and dad and brothers and sisters. He was one of 11 children. The landlord evicted the family because when his dad retired from working, the landlord said, if you're not going to work anymore, you can't stay here. So since he was going to be evicted from their home, they decided they were going to come to Omaha. So the entire family immigrated over 3,000 miles to live together, which is very unique. And that's when we talk about family and love here at Boys Town. A lot of it came from his family because they came, they wanted to stay as a family unit. They didn't want to be broken up. So they all came to the city of Omaha. And eventually he went to seminaries. He failed at 2 seminaries. He failed in New York and in Rome due to poor health. Eventually he went to Innsbruck, Austria and was ordained in Innsbruck, Austria. And then he came back to Omaha to be part of the Omaha diocesan parish. And his first parish was this photograph up here. He went to a town called O'Neill, Nebraska. It's an Irish kind of farming community north of the city of Omaha, very rural community. He was there for about a year, and from the stories of the people there, they loved him because he just had a persona that he'd walk into a room and people were attracted to him from the memories they have there. And in the collection too, we have some of his vestments that he wore when he was at Boys Town, and then we have his chalice his mom presented to him in 1912 when he was ordained in Innsbruck, Austria. So these are very special items that we preserve here in the museum. We have some others that belong to him also. And he was a great champion to abolish reform schools, and the governor of California actually gave him reform school to reform called Whittier School. The children were actually committing suicide there because the guards were so violent. So Father Flanagan tried to reform them and shut them down. So that was one of his major aims, to shut them down. And across America, they virtually disappeared in his lifetime, trying to save those children. He said they needed to love God. We have a picture of Father fishing. He loved the fish. That's why we have his fish net here too. And he would go fishing. You can see the big fish he caught there, like a blue marlin. He would stuff those fish and then hang them in the dining hall we're in right now. So the boys, when they ate, they could look up and see the fish that he caught. Whoa. So he was always thinking of the boys whenever he could. And we have a special artifact here. This is when he went to Ireland in 1946. The Lord Mayor of Dublin gave him this cross. It's called the Cross of Cong. And that was a special artifact that he received on that trip. And there's a certificate here from Israel because Father Flanagan worked with Mr. Monsky, our first donor. They worked on B'nai B'rith International, laid the groundwork for the nation of Israel. So there are several trees named for Father Flanagan in Israel, thanking him for that work. And even in the village of Boys Town today, we have strong connection to the Jewish community in Omaha. The Hanukkah parade every year begins right in front of the Hall of History every year to celebrate that connection between Father Flanagan, Mr. Monsky, and the Jewish community.
That's incredible.
Then he went and visited his native Ireland. He tried to reform the programs there. In Ireland, they had youth care programs that were not appropriate, so he tried to do what he could to reform those. And then after World War II, he went on his mission overseas. He first went to Asia, and we have images of him traveling. He went to Japan, the Philippines, and Korea. He met with Douglas MacArthur, the Emperor and Empress of Japan. There's a unique picture right in the middle there of him standing at Nagasaki, and he visited Hiroshima too and visited the orphanages there. When Father Flanagan passed away, in our collection, we actually have letters from the children from Hiroshima orphanage writing, saying they had lost their parents and how sad they were for the boys of Boys Town. They had lost their father, Father Flanagan. So he made a very huge impact, especially in Japan, on child care and trying to help individuals, and eventually led to founding of even more Boys Towns there. And when people watch the documentary on Father Flanagan, Heart of a Servant, they'll see in Japan today he's still remembered through a bell that they ring called the Father Flanagan bell. And his programming, we're actually currently helping in Japan, teaching them current youth care programming. So that mission still continues on, helping.
So Father Flanagan traveled the entire world. He saved thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of boys. He knew presidents, personally knew them, called them whenever he wanted to. He had a Hollywood blockbuster made about him. He was instrumental in the State of Israel being formed in 1948. He is there anything that he didn't do? And he was an expert fisherman. Expert fisherman. Is there anything that this man couldn't do? What a great, oh my gosh, I'm speechless. Please show us more.
In the collection here we have a unique item also. It's the autographed copy While England Slept by John Kennedy, because Father Flanagan actually worked with Eunice Kennedy and members of the Kennedy family during World War II. He sat on government commissions that were reviewing the effects of the war on children and families. So through that commission he met Eunice Kennedy and John Kennedy, so he received one of those very special signed books, very rare book from Jack Kennedy back at that time when the book came out.
So is it John F. Kennedy whose signature's on this?
Yes, it is. He signed it Jack Kennedy, but it's John F. Kennedy's signature.
That's incredible.
So it was a special gift to Father Flanagan. He knew special people around the world, and then he knew homeless children around the world too. Because when he was in Japan, he'd go into the Tokyo and he found children living in the sewers and junkyards because they were abandoned. Nobody wanted him. So he would go and bring them. So he would go visit the Emperor and Empress at the palace, and then he would go into the sewers and try to help the children in the sewers.
That's something that I want everyone to take away from this. Father Flanagan, he knew presidents, emperors, prime ministers, the most powerful people in society, and he knew the homeless children. He knew them personally. He knew everyone at the very top, and he knew everyone that was the most vulnerable at the very. He knew both of them. That's a Catholic saint.
This section here in the museum talks about Father Flanagan's final mission. The largest image here was taken in Berlin, Germany, just a few hours before he passed away of his massive heart attack. He passed away at age 62. He really worked himself to death. If he would have just slowed down and taken it a little easier, he would have lived longer. But he just had this mission. He had to help the children. And he was actually on this mission to Europe. He was called to Rome by the Vatican, by the Holy Father. He wanted to reconnect with the church in Austria. So he went and visited, and it's actually in the documentary too. You see a scene with him with the Holy Father in Rome on this final trip in 1948, where he's meeting with the Pope so he can reconnect the Austrian church with the Catholic Church. So he was doing missions with homeless children. He was working for the President of the United States and the Holy Father. And he was basically a Monsignor. He was not a cardinal, not a bishop. He was just an ordinary Monsignor, and he was doing this international work. Wow. And when he passed away, everyone assumed Boys Town would close. But he said that God's work to continue on, and we continue on today, serving children and helping families all across America. People can learn about us. They can go to boystown.org and learn more about Father Flanagan and what we do today to help kids and families. Wow.
This is amazing.
And we have a Two Brothers statue here we can look at, because this is our symbol of Boys Town that Father Flanagan had. This is a replica of the photograph taken in 1920 of the actual boys. The little boy on the back is named Howard Loomis. He had polio, and in 1920 his mom didn't want him. She begged Father Flanagan to take him in, so Father finally agreed to take him in. And Reuben Granger is the name of the older boy who carried him, because he could barely walk up and down the steps or outside to play. And in the village of Boys Town, you'll see that as our symbol. And just every Friday, we have a swearing-in ceremony in our village where the new students become residents. And as part of that, they take an oath to be a brother or sister to the other children here in the village of Boys Town. So it all goes back to that theory and concept of brotherhood that we still carry on in the village of Boys Town today.
Wow. And what are all of these plaques that are behind us right now?
This is our lifetime members, our alumni association. We have about 3,000 or 4,000 active members of the Alumni Association, so they can have lifetime memberships. So these plaques begin with alumni that were here in 1917, go all the way up to children today. And we have an alumni convention that takes place once every biannual, so one will be taking place next year. And about 600 to 700 former boys and girls come, and it's men in their 80s to recent graduates. They bring their children and their grandchildren, and they come home to Boys Town. And many of them will cry and tell you stories of what it was like to live here and how Boys Town changed and saved their lives. And if people have the opportunity to go and see the documentary, Heart of a Servant, they're going to see what Father Flanagan created here and why his work continues on today to help kids and families. It's a very unique community we have here at Boys Town. We're open 7 days a week, the year round. People can come and visit, because Father Flanagan said, I want people to come and see Boys Town. So we've been doing interpretation here for over 100 years.
I did the tour here. We did the tour here yesterday before the premiere of the film. We were in a vehicle, in a moving vehicle, driving, and we just kept driving and driving and driving. The tour just wouldn't end. There was just so much to see. 640 acres. This is incredible. I'm just looking everywhere. I feel like I have so much stimulation. I'm looking at all of this amazing, these pictures, all of this history that we're surrounded by. Everyone needs to come here and visit Boys Town, and you need to see the film. You need to see Heart of a Servant, the Father Flanagan story. If every American needs to see this film so that we can be reminded of what it means to truly be an American, a good American, and not only that, to be a good Christian, to be a good person who follows God, because to follow God means that you are going to serve the very least of us. And Father Flanagan did that in a way that if we all emulated it, who was it that said that, a president that said that we need 49 more Father Flanagans?
Franklin Roosevelt.
FDR said that we need 49 more Father Flanagans. We can all do it. Let's all do it. Tom, this is being here is overwhelming. Being surrounded by all of this history and to know that this happened, that this one priest, one Catholic priest built all of this. It was an honor for me to be here with you, to be able to visit the campus, to visit the town, to be here in this museum. Thank you so much for educating us on Boys Town. And is there anything else that you want to tell the audience? Anything else that they need to know about this beautiful place that we're in and about Father Flanagan?
I would just ask everyone to please pray for Father Flanagan's cause and pray to him. And please pray for the boys and girls who live with us in the village of Boys Town today.
When you see everything that this one Catholic priest built, not just here in America, not just here in Nebraska, but all over the world, how could he not be a saint? So let's help and let's all pray that prayer so that Father Flanagan can be recognized as a saint. Tom, it was an honor and it was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. God bless you. And everyone, come and visit Boys Town, because this right here is life-changing. Glory to Jesus Christ.